Good evening and welcome to El Oso Fumar Takes. This is our 82nd take live from Euless, Texas. I'm your host, as always, Bear Duplessis, and I'm so excited, so thrilled, and just I cannot believe today is here to be welcoming you in for our 82nd take. We have a fantastic guest that I'm so excited to be introducing to you in just a few moments. But as always, we've got to pay homage to those people who make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. And this show, of course, is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate is celebrating the 20th anniversary. We're going to be talking about anniversaries this show as well, but they are selling the 20th anniversary of Acid Cigar brand with the national release of Acid 20, a box pressed, chromed out, double decade masterpiece. The celebratory Acid 20 was displayed rather at Drew Estate's booth at this year's IPCPR convention and trade show. Jonathan Drew, president and founder of Drew Estate, exclaims, "The Acid Cigar brand was born under the Manhattan Bridge, on the Brooklyn side, of course, with a raw and honest vision of boundless freedom, urban culture, and massive style supercharged the Acid brand. Shaking the foundation of the traditional cigar empire across the globe, Acid's impact was much more than just disruptive, as it essentially cracked the mainframe of the sleepy status quo. Over 20 years, we have transformed from a scrappy little crew on J Street, Brooklyn, to an organized viral network of distinguished diplomats rocking every street in America. Acid is everywhere, like savoir faire, percolating, and reconnoitering. Acid Cigars celebrating their 20th anniversary, of course, and thanks to Drew Estate, our wonderful, awesome sponsor. And if you are checking this out on YouTube and looking at my ugly mug, I do apologize, but we do appreciate you tuning in live or catching us on a replay on video. But if you are listening us to wherever you can listen to podcasts, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Podbeams, TuneIn, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, you are listening to us exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars is steeped in tobacco tradition. For over 150 years, the Bailey family has been part of America's tobacco heritage, passionately caring for the land they cultivate in Keysville, Virginia. Cornelius and Anthony's devotion to the finest grown tobacco and foremost aspects of craftsmanship allows them to introduce the most exquisite cigars to the market. They invite you to enjoy their portfolio of premium hand-rolled cigars and experience their dedication to producing an exceptional product. So thanks to our sponsors for this show. We're so excited and so pleased to welcome in our guest for our 82nd take from the gorgeous, undisclosed location of the Pacific Northwest. I am so proud, so pleased, and so honored to welcome in the one, the only, the incomparable Semper Fi, Matt Booth of Room 101 Cigars. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Bear. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, the pleasure is all mine, and I've been looking forward to having you on this show for a long time. You and I've known each other for a little bit now, and
For a hot minute.
yes, for a hot minute, and we're going to be talking about how long of a hot minute it has been your time in the cigar industry in a second. But as I mentioned to you before the show, there has been a question that I've been wanting to ask you forever that I always forget to ask you. Whether it's an event we've worked or seeing each other at the trade show or on an interview or something. And I'm like, dang it. I always forget to ask him this. So I'm a large fella and I like my food. I'm the cook of the house. My
Nice.
wife doesn't really like to cook too much. She's a hell of a baker, which is also bad for my midsection. But I did work in a cooking school, worked in a gourmet grocery store for a while. So I was really into the fad of Food Network and everything. So how the hell are you such good friends with Guy Fieri? How did that happen?
Well, that's actually an interesting story. So I was introduced to him through a mutual friend. At the time, he was a client of mine, and he was involved in the restaurant business in California.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, the customer, not Guy.
Oh, got you.
I mean, also Guy, but my client. And he it was during the process of building a custom piece for him, and he mentioned to me in one of our conversations that he had a very dear friend that he was compelled to introduce me to. He didn't exactly know why, but he felt that we would really hit it off. And like I said, he felt compelled to introduce us. And that friend was Guy Fieri. And this was right at the time that he was he was just about to win the competition
The
cooking
next
show.
network star. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of set him on his course, right? This was like the thing that lit the fire for him, right? And so he was just about to win that, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't follow those shows or whatnot. And we got together for a phone call. We like my client, then now friend, felt we did hit it off. And I actually, from the conversation, was compelled. I made him a bracelet as a gift, and it was our Foo Head bracelet, which had a lot of there was a lot of power in that design for us, and I gave it to him as a gift and a well wish, on his path for what he was trying to achieve. And who knew where he would go, right?
Right.
And we've remained friends over the years, and I've made a significant amount of his personal jewelry collection over the years for him. And actually, I want to say it was about a month and a half ago, I had the good fortune to be able to attend his ceremony where my man got his star on the boulevard.
Yeah.
So it's like
on the Walk of Fame. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, from the very beginning to sitting there watching him, get his star on Hollywood Boulevard. It's just he's truly a regular guy that made it, right? So
Right.
he's easy to connect with, and obviously I'm still very happy for him. It was like soaking in pride for your friend, right, in that moment. So that's how we know each other, and I guess that's been, wow, I don't know, man, 8-9 years, something like that. I don't know when that
I think it's
show
been
is,
even longer than that. Because I remember when I was watching his when the show that when he won after he won the contest, he had a show called Guys Big Bite, and I was watching one of the
Correct.
shows, and he was wearing a T-shirt, and I was like, I know that logo, and I was like, and it took me a couple seconds, but I was like, that's Room 101. That's a cigar. Guy Fieri's a cigar guy. Like
and he is a cigar guy too. Actually, no, you're right, man, because I've been in the cigar business for over 10 years now, and I knew him before we made our first cigar. So it has to be over 10 years.
That's just crazy. What a just a, like I said, I've always wanted to hear that story. Just because I'm just a closet geek about Food Network stuff, and yeah, I've kind of watched his career too. So it's kind of cool to have that connection, even though we've never had this conversation about it. But it's kind of cool to have that connection through mutual people. Truly a true example of how small the world is, for sure.
Oh, of course.
So kind of you mentioned a couple of things in that story about Guy that you do a lot of his custom made jewelry. So I kind of want to start a little bit in the beginning here. Matt, we're going to do a fast forward here in a second. What smoking the new Farce Maduro, just like myself.
Oh, I'm about to do that. I'm about to do that.
And but the question I wanted to ask was a little bit, so like how does a member of the U.S. Marine Corps get into jewelry manufacturing? How did that happen, and where did that all start?
So, hold on. Your mom's got it. Mama's got it. My attorney.
I thought we were going to have a guest appearance of your attorney.
Well, apparently you might. This might happen, but it may be him, or it may be Darth Vader. You never know.
Exactly, you never know what's going to happen.
You never know. Darth is always lurking about. It's the Pacific Northwest. This is actually where, similar to people want to know, is Tupac still alive? Is Elvis still alive? Well,
Darth Vader's lurking in the woods somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
He is. He's a woodsman. Who knew? He got a taste for it on the moon of Endor, and from that point on, when he decided to chart his escape from the Galactic Empire, he chose the upper left, as they call it now, or the PNW.
The Pacific. Yeah. He had a taste for salmon. Just the fish just called to him.
He's more machine than man, and the salmon is,
it's the omega-3s. It's the omega-3 fatty acids.
Absolutely.
They're kind of a lubricant for the machine parts of him. Yeah.
Good for his circuitry.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense. So.
Okay.
Live here on LLC Fumar, taking our 80-second take with Matt Booth as he does the
Doing a little
amazing.
home life, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say doing a little domestic life here, man.
I
Being a
love that.
father, being a father is one of the greatest things ever in the world, man. I'm so glad that you get to experience that joy on a regular basis. So
It is the greatest thing of all time, dude.
it really
The
is. I
greatest thing of all
totally agree
time.
with you. Can't disagree at all.
I'm sorry, I was sidetracked. What was
Of
the
course,
question?
so the question was, how does a young man uh, go from serving in the United States Marine Corps to making jewelry? How does that happen? Because it's reminiscent of Paul
Ah,
Revere, who was a silversmith. If we're gonna talk history, so
ooh,
there's a little correlating factor there.
okay, okay. I'm feeling that. So when I got out of the Marines, my plan was to drive around the country and get into adventures. Right. That was as far reaching as my planning had taken me. Right, in my life, and um, I settled back in Hollywood to pursue a career in music. I ended up taking multiple jobs, internships, etc., in that field. One job was working at the Whiskey A Go Go as a lighting and sound engineer, and working at that club on a day to day basis was a super cool experience. But also, there was in that city, in that club, on Melrose, etc. There was this style that was really catching my eye that I was unfamiliar with, and it was this bulky silver um, style that everyone was wearing. You know, it was kind of like you weren't fully dressed unless you had a proper bracelet on, whether it was a big skull bracelet or a Cuban link with some custom stuff, and it wasn't proper unless it was made by one of these cats that were from this small sect of designers that were from Los Angeles, right?
Right. That was a big style back because this was the late '90s, right?
Easy to fall in love with, similar to. Oh, did we freeze for a moment? I'm
I'm
sorry.
not sure. This is the
No, we're
late
good.
'90s, right? Can you hear me? We're good.
What's that?
You,
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah,
so this was the late '90s.
I
So that
can.
was kind of a fad back then. Was that style that you were talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Late '90s, early 2000s, and you know, and like I said, it wasn't a proper piece unless it was made by one of these guys, and similar in a way to. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Go for it. So similar in a way to the devout followers of the boutiquosphere in our business now, right? Like there are certain people that if they're making a product, you're signed up. Like you want to try it, or they're respected um, because of their connection to the craft. And it's definitely a short list of folks, right? And this is very similar to the way the LA Silver subculture was then, right? And still is today. Um, and I, unbeknownst to me, was about to fall deeply in love with that craft, um, and was initially, like I said, attracted to it by the end result, the end product, right? So um, I really decided to make a switch to design when I realized that, uh, you know, when I'm falling asleep is probably when I'm the most creative because I'm starting to loosen up the connection to consciousness, right?
Sure.
And I keep a notepad by the bed, have ever since this stage of my life, because I discovered that some of my best song ideas and then design ideas were coming to me at this moment. So I'd wake up, or not really wake up, but get up and either sketch or note or whatever very quickly, and then fall back asleep. Right. So when I realized I was doing more design work than music writing, that was really my first indicator that was the path I was going to follow.
So when those creative juices started flowing, was that kind of the genesis of what got you into cigar? I didn't want to touch on this too much because I wanted to fast forward to now,
Hmm.
but was the creative element of what you were experiencing from music then to jewelry and metalworking and all that? Was that what kind of got you into cigars, or what actually got you? What how did that all come to pass? How does jewelry transfer into tobacco, premium tobacco?
Danny Vasquez got me into the idea, or introduced me to the idea, that a gentleman smoked a cigar to enjoy his tobacco um, uh, early on in life. I ended up joining him from time to time. when I got a little older, not too much older. But this was really a way to connect with him even more so than to smoking the cigar was secondary. This was like his thing, right? So it
Right.
was me joining him in his core moment. And
Gotcha.
he was clearly the coolest guy in my family. And he had evolved from my grandfather, his dad, who was an avid pipe smoker, right? So the cigar was this new evolution in the family, and he was the guy that was kind of the front runner of that style. So that was the introduction to the concept of enjoying a moment with tobacco. But the idea of branding tobacco followed very closely on the heels of creating my brand to house my jewelry designs. Because as I started to create this, I guess, for lack of better terms, what was almost like a counterculture or alt luxury brand, and exploring luxury brands in general, I happened to fall in love with a brand that was founded by Mr. Alfred Dunhill, right? And this is like the quintessential luxury lifestyle collection. All the finest appointments for the gentleman, right?
Right.
And of course, now in
Of course.
2019 for the gentlelady as well, of course. And um, the thought, uh, the thought was really enticing to me to create the Alfred Dunhill, but of 1920, fully comprehensive lifestyle before laws and restrictions and regulations basically beat people back from creating these multi-class, multifaceted collections, where you could go to this gentleman's flagship boutique and have your cigar and be fitted for your suit and purchase your handmade leather wallet and hand-carved sterling silver cufflinks and possibly even enjoy a drink of his own alcohol, right? So, like I said, fully comprehensive, and how amazing would it be to create, the Alfred Dunhill of 1920, but in 2020, right?
Right.
Which we are right around the corner from 2020, right? So, call it a little bit of techno retro. Obviously, that sentiment surrounding that type of traditional luxury brand, but at the same time, whilst leveraging modern technology wherever and whenever it does not distort the craft foundation of the products, right? So,
Do you think that's where you found success, Matt? Because there's no doubt, no question that when one person looks at your products, of just how modern, it has there's a very modern appeal to them. Everything from the marketing of your cigars to the look of your jewelry, and now even in your spirits with the gin and everything, it's a very modern-esque look. But you've wanted to connect to a very classic time in history, and
absolutely.
and I think and it didn't even, this is the first time I'm kind of hearing this, so it it works. It really does. And so so I take it there's you're still going. You're still creating. There's still
Mm-hmm.
other elements to this.
Hmm.
And is that why everything is Room 101 brand? Like it's all housed under that umbrella?
Absolutely. Compliance related matters or regulatory related matters on the back end of our world, some of these things are run as separate entities, completely separate businesses,
Sure, of
but
course.
flown under the same flag as our house brand Room 101. And if you are looking with a discerning eyeball, you might see small variations in our branding
Hmm.
that are not meant to be so overtly present that there's a big separation, but there are differences in the way some of these categories are branded to satiate brand sharing laws internationally and things of that nature. So that we're still able to offer our branded collection as a whole outwardly, um, and obviously not expose ourselves. I mean, in ways that we don't want to.
Right, of course, absolutely. So, and so, just to bring this back into discussion
Yes.
about cigars, and
Mm-hmm.
so go from U.S. Marine Corps
Mm-hmm.
to music to jewelry. Now you're in the premium cigar business. Fast forward 10 years to 2019, you're celebrating your 10th anniversary. So
Yeah.
I just read an
Crazy.
advertisement. for acid celebrating their 20th, which to most people that's crazy.
Yep.
That's been around for 20 years.
They changed the
But
game.
you've been around for but you've been around for half of that. So that's still incredible. I can't believe it's been 10 years. Tell us what's that, I'm interested to hear like your thoughts and your perspective on the last 10 years, because it's been a road of certainly up, certainly any journey, certainly up, certainly downs, and a lot of in-betweens. But, there's been a lot of joy in this past decade. And what's the journey been like for you to get to 10 years?
Wow, man. Well, diving headfirst into the cigar business specifically, and without a doubt falling desperately in love with the business and our culture and our kinfolk in this business, so to speak, very early on, really solidified my path in the business, and also solidified the fact that this was not just an interesting addition to my lifestyle collection, but this was going to be a major component of my life, and that I was to be at least if I was going to plan to be, I would be a permanent fixture in the lineup in this business, right? So when I started, it was a very, very different business than it is today, and that might seem a little corny to say, but it is mind bending how much certain elements of this business have changed in such a short period of time, and not even in 10 years, but even in the last 4 years.
Absolutely.
Now there are a great deal of components in this industry that will never change, right? And that's, I think, one of the reasons that we all love this business so much, right? But the landscape has changed a great deal since I started. When I started, I had the honor of being included in the business at a time where things were changing, I think, all for the good. It's a period of time that I look back and refer to as the golden era of the boutique brands, right? Very similar to what's referred to as the golden era of hip hop, right?
Right. 2009, 2010,
Yeah.
all the way up to like 2012. There were, some of the brands that the still considered like new, even though you're celebrating your 10th anniversary, these are the brands that come into the fold and really kind of rebolster the industry.
I think there was a bit of a renaissance, a craft renaissance or a cult renaissance, or you fill in the blank with whatever word is.
No, it's a perfect word. I use that word quite a bit, and maybe overly so. So I'm glad someone else used it for me for a change.
Well, we both lived through it. I think that's the best way to describe it, because there was a reinvigoration of interest in the product from, and I don't even want to say a younger consumer, because that sounds a bit cliche, but from the consumer that was the most receptive to the collectability and the limited nature, and maybe some of the more design-driven products, but ones that rested on a foundation of properly crafted product. Like, it wasn't garbage with cool bands on it. It was actually really meticulously crafted and thought. There was a lot of thought invested in the making of that product, but it was just stylized in a different way, and that attracted a different consumer,
right?
And
the way it's made shows that that came out. There was all this time, and like there were cable channels popping up for every conceivable thing. I still can't believe that there's not a cigar channel, but people are really getting into the consumer, like you said, the ones that are most influenced by change and more influenced by information. They're the ones that are watching these shows of like how it's made, and it's not just a beer anymore. It's not just a spirit anymore. It's not just a cigar anymore. I want to know the story. I want to know, everything about it. And so that's where, geniuses like you come into play. And with your creativity, kind of built a resurgence into the industry. The attorney agrees with me.
Oh my, he does, clearly. Come here. Come here.
Oh, guest appearance on LS Fumar Take.
You want to see
This is gonna be good.
You want to see
This
Bear?
is good.
No? Oh, you're shy now?
Yeah.
Come on, bro. All right.
I have a feeling your son is
He's
exactly
not
like
shy.
my son. He's probably the most social. He seems like from just knowing you, talking to you, and following you, he seems like the most social kid. And he's like my son, who's like really social. But you put him on the spot, and then it's like, oh no, I don't like people.
Yeah,
All of a sudden,
very similar. But he picks and chooses. It's not always like that.
right,
But
of course,
yeah, that's a move. That's a move.
it's a
I
power
think
move.
it's just it is a power move. I think he wants to build anticipation. You know, I think that's what it is. Um, so to kind of dovetail into what we were talking about, there was something that occurred at the last trade show, which is directly connected to what we're discussing, right? So I
Mhm.
got a little hair up my ass, and I decided, so okay, so let's say about 8 years ago, Cigar Press had an issue um, that on the cover there were featured about 6 individuals from the cigar
Yes,
business,
yeah,
and it was directly related
very iconic.
to people that Thor felt at the time were responsible for changing the industry, right? And I was very honored and still honored to this day to be included in that group. Um, but that group of people has had an ongoing text chain actually since that photo shoot, right? Which it goes dead for months at a time, and then somebody will get, some sort of,
Inspired or
reason to
something.
chime in. Oh yeah, and spark it up, for a minute. And a couple days before the show, I just said, you know what, man, these guys have been threatening, trying to redo this for years. And I remember originally, it took about a, it took a little over a year to put that photo shoot together.
Right, because you guys are all so busy, and half of you didn't even live in this country. So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we're never in the. I mean, catch two of us in the same place. You're lucky. The rest of it was like, it was next to impossible. So,
It's the trade show is the only place where you're all in the same room, but you guys are going 10,000 miles, in a different
but
direction.
but we were physically all there.
Right.
So I got the hair up my ass to say, hey, let's do this. Let's make an effort and let's recreate this photo. So we decided that I want to say it was like 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. the morning before the first day of the show.
Right.
Like, let's get it done. We all met up at my booth and we reshot the photo.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, I believe the idea is that someday there will be a some sort of "Where Are They Now" feature, or
Right.
I think that's the sentiment. But for me, just to be involved in that was
Matt, you froze up.
it was. You got me?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay. It was just super
Okay.
heartwarming to be involved in that, and it was kind of interesting. We had a photographer show up, um, but it wasn't like a scheduled affair, like outside of our group. And
Right.
while we were taking the photos, I realized that there was actually like a cluster of people that had formed around us, and they were all taking pictures
Yeah. I
of
saw it
this
from so
picture
many different
happening.
angles, except for probably the original one.
Yeah, crazy. It was crazy. And to think about it, what was happening at the time in the industry, and then what was to come after that. Who has already come and gone many times over, who has come in post that, but had a relevant enough and to be a valid member of our community, or valid members of our community. Some are still here, um, but like I said, I think far more are no longer. So it was a really it was a trip. It
It really was.
was a
So,
trip.
couple thoughts about that photo,
Mm-hmm.
and all the credit in the world to Thor Nielsen and his team
Mm-hmm.
at Cigar Press,
Mm-hmm.
because, again, like you mentioned, this was 8 years ago, and this is an industry where we've seen things hit the market really hot and leave, come back, or not come back, and there's a lot of unfortunate, heartbreaking stories like that. But what's really incredible about that story and about that photo is that, first of all of you are still here. And
And swinging.
I would argue very strongly that every single one of you has, if not, has improved on their position in the industry, if not to a greater degree. Um,
Thank you.
and just completely just turn this industry up on its heels with what you've been able to do. I mean, just consider what Jonathan Drew has done with his company now, and
Yep.
what a force Drew Estate has become in the industry.
Hmm.
You know, Dion, from a guy who just, a simple shop owner, and what he's been able to do with his continual success in the Cigar Aficionado Top 25 and producing these incredible cigars, and his palate is, undisputed as well.
He's
um,
brilliant.
I'm and Pete has formed not only a second arm to Tatawahe with Latelier and KC and Dan and Surrogates and all this, but he's kind of created almost a second wing of the My Father empire with what he's been able to build under
Hmm.
under his tutelage.
Absolutely.
Um, George continues to amaze me in a lot of different ways because of just the very simplistic changes that he makes, but yet it's just a continual excellence that he keeps pushing forward. And he's very innovative, but without being over the top about it. And I think George
Hmm.
probably doesn't catch the credit that he deserves. And of course, John Huber and what he's been able to do at Crowned Heads, and the partnerships that he continues to
Hmm.
cultivate across the industry. And then of course there's you, the great person that I happen to be talking to tonight, which what you have since actually been reincarnated.
Hmm.
Um, and this is kind of what we kind of say. I still argue that it's 2.0. Coop and I go back and forth on this. He says that this is Room 101 3.0.
Oh,
I maintain that it's 2.0.
I'd agree. Well, why don't we meet in the middle and call it 2.5?
There we go. I think that's totally fair, and that's totally Matt Booth type fashion. So
It's
I'm
it's
with you
V
on that.
2.5.
So the um, you mentioned this year's trade show, and
Hmm.
this was something that you and I spoke about before the show. And
Mm.
I don't want to really get into the negative portion of it, but like there was a really dark cloud hanging over this year's show. Whether it be the talk about PCA, whether it be the talk about CigarCon, or whether it be talk about attendance and things like that.
Mhm.
But one of the things, and this happened just to me, this happened to me a few times, really notably at the Room 101 booth. We had a wonderful appointment with you,
Mhm.
short because you were incredibly busy, as you mentioned.
Thankfully,
Um,
gratefully.
even during our appointment, people were coming in and
Hmm.
grabbing your attention and everything. So like you were definitely needed. We really appreciate that time that you gave us.
Of course.
But when I left that booth specifically, I don't want to speak for Coop, but I'm going to speak for myself. When I left your booth, I felt reinvigorated about not only Room 101, not only about you, not only about your place in this industry, but this industry as a whole. Because of
Wow.
the direction that you're going with this company, you really invested wholeheartedly. It's not just about the what's new craze. Yes, you brought a lot of new product to the show, but it wasn't just the new product itself. It was the commitment that you have to this industry.
Thank you.
Um, and I love that you're bringing back the big payback. I love the new look on the farces,
Hmm.
really the cohesiveness across the brands there. Uh, the 10th anniversary cigar, I'm really thrilled that you decided to pay tribute to yourself by doing a 10th anniversary cigar. You much richly deserve it. And of course, the
Thank you.
Doomsayer as well is a nice project as well. So um, that all being said, so to tie that all together, I want to kind of focus on what we're smoking tonight, which is the Room 101 Farce Maduro, which is the
Hmm.
newest addition to this particular line. So, usually at the show, there's always like a horse out the gate that everyone's talking about and everything like that. And I maintain that this year there was one that you could argue that really kind of took the cake, but there were a lot there were, well, not a lot, but there were about 3 or 4 cigars that I smoked that were just, and that everyone I spoke to just had incredible things to say. And and when I lit this up the first time, this is my third one, the Farce Maduro is incredible,
Thank you.
and incredible.
Thank you.
And like, so I don't normally get into rapper binder filler speak on this show,
Mhm.
but I got to nerd out with you on a second on this. So we've
Cool.
got a fantastic blend here. So we've got a San Andreas wrapper
That's correct.
over Ecuadorian Sumatran binder.
That's correct.
Connecticut broadleaf, Pennsylvania
Mm-hmm.
broadleaf,
Absolutely.
and then just for seasoning, a little bit of Nicaraguan in the filler.
A touch, but not too, just a skosh.
So this is a flavor bomb for anyone who's paying attention.
100.
And so talk to me a little bit about the creative process that went into playing this blend. Like, I mean, because that is all, those are some powerful tobaccos. How did you come up with a blend that that turned into such a well-balanced, rich, and full-flavored cigar?
So this blend specifically was the direct product of a very magical blending session with Henderson Ventura in Tamboril, right? I went down there, just on standard fare business, check in on things, and of course we began to kind of flirt with each other about some blending and whatnot, which is typically the way this goes, right? And so we start digging into it, and one of the things that and I don't really know how everyone does their deal, but we start chatting about the general emotion of what we would like to achieve with the product, right? And he had both these broadleaf tobaccos there, right? And we were smoking puros of those and really digging into crystal clean, white pepper through the nose, ballsy mouthfeel. That might have sounded a little strange, but that is what it gives you, right?
There's some power behind this. Yeah, all sexual metaphor aside, yes, absolutely.
Hey, you said it. I didn't.
I did. So, I did say it.
But the idea, as we began to kind of delve in, this is when that mashup of the outsider and the core traditionalist, the marriage of those two minds and palates and blend direction, really kind of sing a different song, right? So, and just on a side note, every one of our blends, as it does in every factory, I think that's kind of how it goes. Gets kind of a working title, right? And so this blend.
You cut out there for a second. Every one of your blends, what, Matt? You cut out there for a second. Every one of your blends, what?
Oh, I think most blends in any factory receive a working title.
Gotcha.
To kind of manage where we're at in different stages with different projects, right? And that's no different from Henderson's factory. And after I left, I was informed that this blend received the working title of Forest Scary. Because it was so ballsy compared to, because their steel is it's sophisticated, it's developed, it's smooth, but with tons of personality and complexity. And this has those elements, but it's as if the volume knob has been cranked up past 11 on some of the power components, right? Whilst remaining balanced. So for them, this was way outside of their comfort zone. And for me, this was a direction that I absolutely wanted to go with our brand. We desperately needed this type of personality in our lineup, right? So the composition, quite frankly, is quite simple. You have two powerhouse tobaccos, the two broadleafs that, when married together, produce this, like I said, retro. If I smoke for my enjoyment, I consistently retrohale. I need spice, I need power, but I can't have any dank finish, man. It's got to be crisp and clean. Like, I need to. Finish is huge for me. I don't want any like remaining or lingering funk. Like, I want it to be clean, cut and dry, so that the next taste is just as fresh as the first and the one before that, and et cetera. So
yeah, it's interesting that you use the.
But that's what this formula really. Are we frozen again?
We're back. Yeah, no worries.
Did we freeze again?
Okay. It's interesting to use the word dank, because earthiness is what I refer to when I think of dank, like earthy flavor. But and Connecticut broadleaf in its essence, and to some degree, San Andreas, certain San Andreas that I've tasted too have that earthy components, but the marriage, as you mentioned, of all these tobaccos, kind of the richness, the spice, the power, and everything, kind of removes that, to use your word, that dankness from those tobaccos, and it's really created a very complex blend that, yes, it has spice, but it's not overwhelming. It has richness, 100%. But it's not overwhelming. it's an incredibly balanced, full flavored cigar. And I think that's something that was kind of put an end to the powerhouse fad from a few years ago, where everyone was like stronger, 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 and then it just became like you were smoking straight Tabasco,
Mhm.
and there wasn't any there was they I won't say lost the ability, but there seemed to be this lost direction of how to build complexity within that full bodied mold, and I think you've captured it. I think
Well,
you and
thank you.
Henderson have captured it.
Thank you, man. And that was the goal, right? And the beauty, and I'm simply echoing your sentiments, and I appreciate you noticing. But it is the marriage of these components that, for example, there was a bit of sharpness and I don't want to say overpowering. Um, it might have been a little bit. It might have been a little bit out of bounds or less than balanced in a couple departments. But when you then add the San Andres, it's almost like if the power of the flavor profile was a square, the San Andres almost rounds the corners, like smooths the sharp edges off of it. And I mean, I mean, nothing's perfect, but to me, it was the perfect embodiment of what I was looking to achieve with that original sentiment, right? And so, um, I'm all good with strong cigars, man. I'll smoke strong cigars all day, but they have to be a little bit more sophisticated than just something that blows your doors off. Like I need,
Hmm.
I've always related, because I always go back to music in a lot of ways. I've always related blending and blending styles to music. So, uh, if you wanted to think about, an aspiring young guitar player, right? He's gonna pick up his guitar and he's gonna start to learn punk rock, because punk rock is loud and it's aggressive and it's simple and it's pretty easy to pick up and it sounds good even if you completely fuck it up.
Right.
And but as his skill set advances and as his taste evolves, you would hope that you would find him in a couple years or another year playing Metallica or some more, and then fast forward some more instrumental stuff. And then, by the time he's been playing for, 5, 6 years, he might be tinkering with some jazz or something like that. And that is evolution, right? And so I think that, if you want to contrast that to cigar making, the young aspiring punk rocker is making these balls forward, uh, uh, sometimes less than balanced powerhouses, which are great, but you know, some people want to have jazz. I just want to have like heavy metal
Yeah,
jazz.
that's
That makes
I
sense.
agree. It's all about I agree that it's all about nuance, and
Hmm.
that's what I really love about this business, and particularly what I love about cigars. And this is why the essence of this show is to get to the story behind the story. Like I said, I don't normally get this far into wrapper binder filler on this show,
Hmm.
just because I want to get into the kind of the stories that make the individuals that I happen to have the privilege of speaking with. And but to your point about music, I think that's that's a great point, and it elevates that specific musician to another level, just like it does with the cigar maker. And much like Ray Charles, who started off with that new age kind of gospel turned jazz, kind of
Hmm.
merging for the secular crowd, and then fast forward a couple decades in the business, and he creates a masterpiece like Georgia with a full symphony.
Yeah, there you go.
It's you know and to that point, we had a comment in the chat
Hmm.
from one of your biggest fans,
Oh,
Tyler
there's a
Jeffrey. Who,
chat. Is
yeah,
there a chat?
there's a chat on YouTube. Yeah,
Oh my.
Tyler Jeffrey, who's a great fan of the show, and he runs
Ooh,
a
Tai
hell of a
Tai?
job.
Tai Tai's
Yeah,
in the chat?
yeah, up in the great
What's up, Tai
Midwest,
Tai?
the just a stone's throw away from the Canadian border up there. He operates a great shop, and he does a heck of a job.
In
He said
Wisco.
that this is your masterpiece.
My man. My
So
man. Thank you. That means a lot. And uh honestly, for you to kind of to focus and dig in on this blend, like I'm extremely proud of everything that we're doing, but there is something different about this cigar, and it's connected to, my journey in this business and my evolution as a participant in the blending process, and on and on. So I'm to have somebody else that obviously has tremendous chops to their palate, say that means a lot.
It's certainly been a great year for you, and it's not over yet. So this 10th anniversary that you're celebrating
Oh
is
my.
it's fantastic, and it's leading into a lot of other projects that we talked about. And in honor of, I was thinking about tonight, and I was thinking, I was like, what do I have for Matt Booth?
Mm.
What can I what can I drink? What can I even wear that would be worthy of the eclectic guest that you are? And so I thought of the one of the coolest, weirdest shows that I shirts that I own, and I just purchased it on a recent trip to Colorado. I just thought it was pretty interesting. I'm wearing a sloth
Oh,
shirt that says "Not so fast."
I like that.
I don't know. It screamed you a little bit just because you're just really unique guy, and but I think not to get overly obnoxious here, but I think this shirt um, represents your career in a very 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 small nutshell of, hey, you received critical acclaim throughout this past decade, but you've been the first one to say, kind of
Mm.
slow down for a second. I'm not done yet. There's more to Matt Booth. There's more to Room 101, not just in the cigars as we talked about but with your other enterprises as well. Um, and
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of goes into the next project that you and I spoke about in your booth.
Mm.
It's a project that I've been very fond of since its first reincarnation. Now you've brought it back, and that's the Big Payback
Yeah,
project,
man.
which
Hmm.
is if I may speak for you, Matt, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but
Please.
it's your token, it's your gesture to your fans and to the consumer base of saying, hey, thank you for everything, and it's a cigar that is reasonably priced with
Absolutely.
fantastic tobacco, and it's your way of giving back to your fans. Why was it important for you to bring this brand specifically back, and to that point, why is it important for you to give back
Mm.
to the consumers?
Well, so the answer is multifold, right? First and foremost, this new chapter in our lifespan in the business was to be one of newness and a showing and offering of what our capabilities are now, 10 years and beyond, vested in this industry and in this craft, and at the same time to ultimately revitalize and breathe new life into not all but some uh, legacy brands under the Room 101 brand name that were not only drivers for our followers and our fans, but things that were very important to me, right? So Payback is not the only sub brand that you'll see rear its head once again in our item offering, but I thought it was the appropriate, excuse me, English, the appropriate first step in reintroducing some of these legacy products to our line.
I was really excited, like I said, that you brought it back specifically, and that it was kind of one of the ones, because there are a lot of legacy brands, as you mentioned, that you could possibly delve into, because that was one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I thought was probably and I know you'll agree with me because you're the one who did it. It was probably one of the more brilliant moves on your part from a business standpoint, was that you maintained the rights to your brand, even though they've changed hands in terms of where they've been manufactured and things like that. Um, you've maintained ownership of the name and everything, and so that's, obviously, hats off to you on that, because that's part of your identity,
Yeah,
and you were able to maintain control of it, even though you've had fabulous partnerships then and
absolutely,
now.
absolutely. I'm grateful for all the partnerships that I've had in this business, past, present, and who knows what's to come in the future. But it was always critical for me to maintain is who we are. It's who I am, and it's what we do. So that was imperative, and still is, and forever will be.
Terrific. Well, Matt, I thank you so much for your time tonight. I do. We're not quite done. I have a couple more questions for you. But something that
Mhm.
I was really excited to have you on tonight. And again, appreciate your time. It is a little more reasonable of an hour for you, being on the West Coast. But still, this is Sunday. This is family time, and for you to, and as your attorney has pointed out several times during the show, it is valuable time with him that you are giving me. So I'm truly grateful. So I wanted to definitely show some appreciation there for you.
Likewise to you, and I just appreciate you you having me on.
So other than the shirt, I also wanted to commemorate this show by taking part in a beverage that seems very domestic, but it seemed very perfect for this moment as the father of Johnny Tobacconaut, and this being an anniversary show, your 10th anniversary.
That's correct.
And it being yesterday being the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, I'm drinking the Budweiser Discovery Reserve. So in honor of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, which did happen, and I will fight any conspiracy theorists to I'll go to fisticuffs over that because it did happen, and anyone who says
we went to the moon,
we did.
We went
absolutely.
We just might go again.
So I do want to ask so another question that's kind of creeped up in my head over time, not so needling me as the Guy Fieri story, which again, thank you so much for giving for me personally, our audience may not care, but that was really of interest to me.
Of course.
So you've nicknamed your son your attorney, and that's how you commonly refer to him as. Absolutely. How did that all come about, and what's the take on that?
Because from his inception, he has always been my counsel, no matter and I imagine that he probably will continue to be. I mean, no matter what his grasp on language is or depth of thought, like he has always been from the day he came into my life, my balance. And so I refer to him as my attorney because he's constantly there as my my permanent counsel.
Matt, I'm like I said, as we mentioned earlier in the show, fatherhood's the greatest blessing that both of us have experienced, and I have to say that from afar and from my perspective, fatherhood suits you very well, and you. There are moments that you've captured with your attorney that gives me pause and gives me thought on how to be a better father too. So I wanted to tell you. So,
well, look, you were a father before I was, man. So that means a lot. I'm just doing with him. I'm just doing what feels natural, and the last couple of years have been some of the heaviest in some ways that I've ever lived through. I think sometimes that I would prefer to go back to. I would go back and do boot camp and infantry school all over again with a smile on my face to delete some of the weight I've carried on my shoulders for the last couple of years. But he has constantly and consistently been my rock. And although they've been heavy years, they've been the best years at the same time because of my family. My beautiful wife.
That's terrific, and cannot forget Boo, because she was born on a great and fabulous day, my son's birthdays.
Oh, is that a fact?
July 14th, right? That's her birthday.
Yeah. So, but check this out. So she was July 14th. I am August 14th, and my son naturally was June 14th. Cosmic. It's all meant to be.
It's all about nuance, man. It's the details in life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So to end on a final fun note, Matt, again, thank you so much for your time. I just wanted to leave our viewers with something, because what would be a Matt Booth interview without a little bit of craziness?
Ooh.
Well, we've had a lot of fun tonight, so we've checked that box, so to speak. But your relationship, partnership, dynamic with one of your partners, Mr. Robert Caldwell, is
yes,
well documented, and you guys
a vile man.
You guys
not to be trusted.
You guys have been embroiled in a seemingly ongoing prank, one-upsmanship, bust your balls type relationship since you guys started this partnership just a few years ago, and so I thought I would enter in a thing for our curveball segment. I thought I would enter in a nice, interesting question, something for you and Robert to consider as you kind of go forward and take your battles to the next level. And Considering you are a man of gorgeous body art with your many tattoos and everything,
Thank you.
I would think that that the next level of your relationship with Robert should consist of a tattoo bet.
Oh,
So, with that thought, my question to
tell me
you is,
more.
what would the tattoo bet consist of if you had a tattoo bet with Robert? What do you think the bet would be over? And if Robert had to be on the losing end, what do you think he would have to be tattooed? What would have to be tattooed on him? And if you were unfortunately on the losing end, what would have to be tattooed on you?
Well, I have had the good fortune of knowing him for several years, even several years before his own namesake brand was realized, and he is definitely uh, one of one of the best friends I've made, both in the business and actually in life in general. And not to get too romantic, because we have to remember he's a horrid person, one that is not to be trusted, right? Although he is one of my best friends, and I love him dearly.
And most trusted business partner. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely,
just
absolutely.
put that up.
Yeah, correct. You know, I mean, it's hard for me to take tattoo bets because I would just get the tattoos because I like to get tattoos. I don't necessarily like to receive them, but I do like to wear them. I definitely think that the final product should be a very high caliber, high quality portrait of each other on the other. And the bet itself, well, quite frankly, I think the bet itself should be decided by the people. I think the
Ooh.
people should decide what the bet is. And the final result is that one of us will have the other's portrait tattooed on us.
So there's something to mull over for the next, we'll call it the next year till the next IPCPR, because it's as you were mentioning earlier with the other gentleman that you were talking about, the schedule that you and Robert keep is quite
Mm-hmm.
intense.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll call it a year, and we'll see what the people start calling for
Mm-hmm.
to be the wager between the two of you, and then uh, if you both agree to it, of course, a high caliber,
I am
high
agreeable.
quality portrait of one another on each other. That would be interesting. I'm not gonna lie. That would be
But
really interesting.
I think that I think that the portrait should include a hat or a headdress of some sort, and an adornment in addition to the
Yeah, because
portrait.
there has to be something kind of crazy about it. Because I mean, you let's face it, you two are both, again, very handsome men. So it's not like it would be really
So
weird to have
flirtatious.
each other's face on each other because it's hey, this is my business partner Matt, this is my business partner Robert. Yes, he's a handsome fellow, you know. But look at that
But I mean,
headdress.
but I also think that placement is a key component here as
Oh,
well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The problem with you because I'm not sure about Robert's tattoos if he even has any. I can't recall any visible ones off the top of my head, but placement for you seems to be more challenging these days.
Well, I mean, we would be looking at some more intimate areas, I believe, especially on my own person, which I'm happy to entertain. Affording some of that real estate to his beautifully sculpted jawline and perpetually perfect 5 o'clock shadow.
It is
Listening,
incredible, isn't it?
I mean, what lab did they build that man in? Oh dear. I mean, it's like he's so vertical. I think he might be 7 feet tall. Is he seven
It
feet
feels
tall?
it feels like it. I'm glad you're not the only one that said. I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way because every time I'm around him, I feel like I'm literally talking to Goliath.
The long one.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the man is. Yeah, it has to be 7 feet tall. He has to be 7 feet tall. Absolutely.
And
I think
always
there's.
in deck shoes. So there's no platform. It's just his
Yeah,
foot on the ground. He's that tall.
yeah. It's not like he's walking around in cowboy boots.
No, no.
In
So
fact, I
that's
was
the
wearing
idea.
cowboy boots around him one time, and he still dwarfed me. That was incredible.
Wait, what was that? You broke.
I
You
was
broke.
I wore cowboy boots around him one time, and he still dwarfed me. I was still very very much diminutive compared to him.
Understood. I get it.
So that's
I understand.
something for the masses to consider.
Mhm.
What would be a good bet that Matt and Robert could take on that the loser would have the others uh, name face perpetually and permanently
Likeness.
fixated on their likeness. That was the word I was looking for.
Now, in all fairness, I would just probably get the tattoo anyways, just for shits. But I'd like to see what type of bet fair the folks at home come up
Yes,
with.
that'll be interesting for sure. We'll have to continually put it out there to see if they can come up with something good for you guys to entertain. Because it's got to be quality. You know, if the
Of
tattoo is going to
course.
be of high quality, the bet has to be of high quality and high
Oh
quality.
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So. Well, again, Matt, I cannot thank you enough for spending the evening with me, and again, diving into family time as your attorney is drawing your attention. He's probably saying it's bedtime, Daddy, and I need my stories. So we definitely want to end here on a good note. And again, thank you so much for your time, Matt, and thank you to everyone out there who tuned in for our 82nd take. This was our 82nd take, and I was privileged and pleased and honored to be sitting with the man, the mystery, the incomparable Matt Booth, as he's trying to coax his attorney to come on and make a guest appearance on LSU Fumar Takes. I cannot tell you how much I want this. This is going to be fantastic if this can happen.
Come here.
Oh yes, sir. Look at that handsome face. How are you doing, buddy? Can you hear me?
He's got the headphones now, man. I can't.
Can you hear me okay? How are you doing tonight?
That's Bear. Oh, you're going to be shy. You shy? You're not shy. He is not shy.
No, he's not. But he is one handsome kid. Thank God he takes after his mother. Oh man. You have a beautiful son, Matt. And since you didn't have the headphones on, I said he's a handsome boy, and I said thank God he takes after his mother.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're all grateful for that.
Wonderful. Well, everyone out there, I really appreciate all of your likes, shares, and comments. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Podbean, TuneIn, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let us know how we're doing. And subscribe on YouTube as well. And be sure to check out an amazing upcoming schedule that we have on Facebook, on our Facebook page at LSU Fumar. And as always, this was our 82nd take. And I'm your host, as always, Bear Duplessis. And he is Matt Booth, celebrating his 10th anniversary in the industry. We really appreciate him, his attorney, for making a guest appearance. I was so excited to get that. And I am so excited for our upcoming takes as well. So, again, check out our schedule and everything. For everyone out there, again, I'm Bear Duplessis from Euless, Texas. This has been LSU Fumar Takes. And guess what, guys? See you next time.
Much respect.